Hello, this is Chey Barnes from Prepare Now TV, and I have the honor of having David Womack with me here today. He is with Earthling Films, and he is the director of a brand new documentary film regarding the threats to the power grid. Good morning, David. How are you?
Good morning, Chey. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. So tell me a bit about your documentary that's coming out.
Well, the documentary is called The Black Sky Event, and it's about the vulnerabilities to America's power grid. Mm-hmm. And basically, I got interested in this in 2009 when I read the book 1 Second After by Dr. Forsham, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers have also read. And over the years, we just became concerned because I always thought the people in DC would handle this problem and, address the threats to the power grid and fix it. But over the last 15 years, they really haven't done anything. And when I heard people call for a grassroots movement to do something about it, I said, what can I do? And I've been in the film business for 30 years. So this is what I could do. I could make a documentary to make the general public more aware of the problem.
Wow, that's awesome. So glad somebody's tackling this. Tell me what kind of people you've been interviewing for this.
Well, basically we've tried to cover the whole spectrum of the problem. I mean, you have, of course, solar EMP, the threat from that. You have cyber attacks, and you have nuclear EMP. So we have interviewed experts on all three subject matters. For solar EMP, we went to Colorado and interviewed NOAA, and we went to the Space Weather Center, interviewed Bill Murtaugh, who's the assistant director of the Space Weather Center, and he took us through and showed us all the space monitoring. They monitor it 24 hours a day. It's really quite fascinating.
I bet.
And so for the cyber section, we've interviewed hackers and cyber experts to talk about control systems and the vulnerability of the power companies' control systems, basically. And that's probably the widest thing that people know about is the cyber threat, because that's what has gotten the most news coverage. And then for the EMP threat, we have interviewed Dr. Peter Pry, Hank Cooper, several generals, Ambassador Woolsey, former director of the CIA, to get a feeling for the nuclear and physical threat to the grid, which comes from nation states, terrorists. So it's really been a fascinating journey.
I can imagine it would be. From what I understand, the government has classified EMP as a cyber threat versus a nuclear threat, which they've lumped it, in my opinion, under the wrong category. Therefore, it's not getting the attention that it deserves. What's your opinion on this?
Well, I think that the reason they've done that is because our adversaries, Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, look at nuclear EMP as a cyber weapon. If they fired a nuclear missile and it exploded 400 miles above our atmosphere and caused a nuclear EMP, they don't consider that a nuclear attack on us. They consider that a cyber attack. So I think they're just trying to get in the same mindset as our adversaries, because all their war plans now call for cyber war basically on us, which would precede or coincide with any military conflict, any major military conflict we got into with them.
Very well said. Did you learn anything new or exciting or interesting that you did not know along the way?
I've learned a lot. We did a lot of research going into this. We did about 3 months of research, really deep research, and but I still didn't learn everything. You get in the room with some of these fascinating people that we were able to interview, and they're so brilliant and so articulate, and it was amazing to find out that I guess the biggest thing I found out was the vulnerability to our nuclear plants through the grid being down because of the Fukushima-like effects. Fukushima, Japan, where they had the tsunami and the nuclear meltdown a few years back. I think it was in 2011. That we have nuclear plants all across the country that have spent fuel rods that are very vulnerable to that. And I had never thought about the cascading effects of that. I thought about all the other infrastructure that we would lose that's connected to the grid. But we interviewed a nuclear scientist from the Union of Concerned Scientists, and he was articulate, he was amazing, brilliant, and he really broke it down for us. So I'm really excited to share that with people, because that's something that people really don't know.
Oh, this is going to be very, very eye-opening for so many people when this comes out. When do you expect the film to come out?
I think we're shooting for 2019 first quarter. We're not exactly sure of the release date. Right now, we're still filming, and a lot of it depends on when we can get the final interviews that we need and get on people's schedule, because some people that we're interviewing it's hard to get on their schedule, as you would understand.
Sure.
So, but yeah, we are shooting for first quarter of 2019.
And where would I be able to see this?
You'll definitely be able to see it on Amazon. We're talking to some other people. We'll present it to some other venues like Netflix and maybe National Geo, maybe HBO. We're not sure. We have to get the film complete before we submit it to them.
I gotcha. Okay, well, we're very much looking forward to seeing this.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for joining us today, David.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Excited to see it. Take care.
Thanks.
And thank you for joining us today. We'll have more exciting information for you coming out shortly on Prepare Now TV.
Are we winning or losing?
Sir, this is a battle that is going to be going on for many years. We're still trying to get our arms around it. This is not
Repeat my question. Are we winning or losing?
One of these three things will happen. There will be a cyber attack, a Carrington event, a nuclear EMP, and all three of them have essentially the same effect. They bring down the grid.
You cannot sustain the population of a 21st century superpower without electricity. And unfortunately, every bad guy on the planet knows that.
Nuclear EMP is in the military plans of Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran for combined armed cyber warfare.
North Korea could hit the U.S. with an apocalyptic EMP attack.
I think the next big surprise that's going to face us is Iran.
EMP are one of many threats the electric sector must confront. A cyber attack aimed at disrupting electric service would be a relatively cheaper and easier weapon to deploy.
The private sector is on the front lines of this battle, and very few companies went into business thinking they had to defend themselves against foreign militaries.
We're not only going to be dealing with nation states, but we're going to be dealing with groups, with individuals, when we're dealing with a capability that is relatively inexpensive and so easy to acquire. That makes this really problematic.
We know Mother Nature is going to do an EMP laydown in due course.
You might have heard word of a solar flare headed our way. A big enough flare hitting Earth at the wrong spot could cripple power grids and communications.
These things happen roughly every 100 years. Well, we're about 160 years overdue. It's coming, folks.
Congress should look at EMP attacks, cyber warfare, and nuclear weapons as three great threats to our survival. We have to be able to defeat all three of those threats.
We're going in exactly the wrong direction. When the EMP Commission has already spent 17 years studying the threat, has repeatedly told Congress this is a real threat, and we know how to protect against it.
There are a lot of people doing a lot of good things at a relatively leisurely pace and trying to be reasonable. Work back from consequence, you rapidly become unreasonable because the consequences are so horrible.
I gave up on trying to get institutions here in Washington to deal with this issue. I think we're living through the most dangerous period of my lifetime.
This is vastly bigger than 9/11.
The day before it happened would have been regarded as highly unlikely.
You're talking about a catastrophic event.
It takes civilization back to the 1800s.
Our citizens are not prepared in this country for the low to no notice big events. If you're expecting FEMA to do it, that's not a sound plan.
If there will be no electricity for the next year, what will you do?